When my boy told me I wasn't welcome at his place for Christmas, I didn't argue. I just smiled, walked out to my truck, and made a single phone call. By New Year's, their mortgage payments were wiped out, and that was only the opening move. I wasn't out for revenge. I was out for balance. Arrogance had to be humbled, and wrongs needed to be put right. You wouldn't believe the next thing I did. But before I get into it, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment letting me know where you're tuning in from. I could make my famous turkey this year, I said, sinking deeper into Jason Miller's leather couch, the one with the sage green stuffing his mother had loved so much. I could almost hear her voice again, teasing that it was better than her grandmother's. The memory drifted between us in the warm air, mixing with the rich, sweet scent of Samantha's pricey vanilla candles. Jason Miller shifted uncomfortably beside me, his wedding ring catching the glow from their massive 12-foot Christmas tree. Something in the way he sat changed, his shoulders drew in like he was bracing for a punch. "Dad. I'm sorry, but you can't be here for Christmas." It landed like a gut punch. I actually blinked, wondering if I'd heard him wrong. "What do you mean? Why wouldn't I be welcome?" He didn't look at me. His eyes stayed glued to the marble coffee table, the one I'd helped him choose last spring when Samantha decided their old furniture wasn't sophisticated enough. "Samantha's parents are coming," he said finally, "and they'd prefer if you weren't here." My hands went cold. "They'd prefer? It's just easier this way, Dad. You know how her family is with traditions. They've got their own way of doing things." His voice shrank with every word, like he was folding into himself. I glanced around their living room, at the silk curtains I'd bought after Samantha complained about privacy, the hardwood floors paid for by the second mortgage I'd taken out, the crown molding that had maxed my credit card. Everywhere I looked, I saw my sacrifice, my work, my love for my son. Their own way. I repeated slowly. "And what way is that, Jason Miller?" He flinched like I'd struck him. "Dad, please, don't make this harder." Through the kitchen archway, my eyes landed on Samantha's professional-grade KitchenAid mixer, the $2,000 one she just had to have for her holiday baking phase. That phase lasted all of 3 weeks. I'd bet money it hadn't been touched since October. "And where exactly am I supposed to spend Christmas?" I asked, my voice quieter than I'd intended. Jason Miller's face tightened. "Maybe you could. I don't know, visit Aunt Elena. Or we could do something the weekend after." The weekend after. Like Christmas was just a casual lunch meeting you could push back on the calendar. I stood, my knees protesting after years of carrying this family's weight alone. "I see," I said. "Dad, wait." But I was already heading for the door, passing the family photos where my face seemed to fade smaller in each frame, passing the coat closet stuffed with Samantha's $1,000 jackets. My hand found the doorknob, cold and solid under my palm. "Son," I said without looking back, "tell Samantha's parents. Feliz Navidad." The December air slapped my face as I stepped off their porch. Behind me, I heard Jason Miller call my name once before the soft, final click of the door closing. I sat in my truck, engine off, staring at the twinkling Christmas lights in houses I'd never be welcome inside. My phone buzzed, probably Jason Miller, ready to patch things up with hollow words and guilt. I ignored it. Instead, I turned the key, rolled into the darkness, and left behind the warm glow of a home I'd paid for but would never truly belong in. The heater hummed against the chill as I navigated the familiar streets back toward my place. South Hill spread out around me, every corner holding memories of the man I used to be, the one who believed family was worth everything, the fool who would give his last dollar just to see his son smile. That man was gone. I stopped at the red light on 29th and Grand, watching a young dad load Christmas presents into his SUV while his kids pressed their faces to the glass, breathing clouds of excitement onto the window. Once upon a time, that had been Jason Miller and me. Before Samantha. Before I'd been reduced to nothing more than a bank account with inconvenient feelings. Numbers flashed through my mind like a broken slot machine, $2,800 every month for 5 straight years. My calculator had practically thrown in the towel when I'd finally added it all up last spring. $140,000. More than Maria Ramirez and I had managed to save for our entire retirement. Gone. Just, gone. The light turned green, and I pressed the gas harder than necessary. The truck growled in agreement with my mood. 5th Street, that was where I'd refinanced our house, Maria's and mine, to cover Jason Miller's down payment. I still remembered the loan officer's face, that polite pity I hadn't recognized for what it was at the time. "Mr. Flores, are you sure? You're putting a lot at risk for someone else's investment." Someone else's investment. Not my son's future. Not my family's stability. Someone else's. Then Lincoln Street, the bank where I'd taken out a second mortgage when Jason Miller lost his job 2 years back. Just temporary, Dad. Just until I get back on my feet. I could still see Samantha standing behind him, a $700 purse hanging off her shoulder, nodding with that sympathetic little smile while probably calculating exactly how far she could stretch my desperation. Turns out, my desperation wasn't worth much to them at all. I pulled into my cracked driveway, the repairs long overdue because every extra dollar had gone straight into fueling their perfect little suburban dream. The porch light sputtered above me, reminding me of yet another repair I'd been putting off. Inside, the house felt too big and too quiet, no Maria Ramirez laughing in the kitchen, no hum of family chatter filling the air. Just the echo of my own footsteps bouncing off bare walls. As I fumbled with my keys, my phone rang. The sound cut through the silence, sharp and hollow. I glanced at the screen. Samantha. Perfect. Probably calling to explain why I wasn't fit for her parents' delicate holiday sensibilities. I'd been waiting 5 years for this talk. I let it ring 4 times before answering, just long enough to make her wonder if I'd pick up at all. "Henry," she said, her voice dripping with that fake sweetness she always used when she needed me to pay the water bill or cover the property taxes. "I heard about the little misunderstanding with Jason Miller." "Misunderstanding?" I leaned against the counter, coat still on. "I don't think there's any misunderstanding, Samantha. You've made yourself perfectly clear." She sighed like I was the one being difficult. "Look, I know this feels harsh, but you have to understand my parents' perspective. They're traditional people. They like a certain atmosphere during the holidays." "A certain atmosphere," I repeated slowly. "And what kind of atmosphere is that?" There was a pause, the faint sound of shopping bags rustling in the background. I could picture her already, walking through some boutique, burning through money that should have gone toward the mortgage I'd been covering. "Well, they're not used to your kind of cooking. You know, all that spicy Mexican food and loud music." She let the words hang in the air for a beat before adding, "And frankly, Henry, they're educated people. They expect conversations about current events, literature, art, you know." Her words hit harder than any punch. 8 years I'd held my tongue, swallowed insults for Jason Miller's sake, and pretended not to see the way she looked at me, like I was the hired help. "My kind of cooking," I said evenly. "You mean the food you ate every Sunday for 3 years when you two couldn't afford groceries? The tamales you said tasted just like your grandmother's?" "That was different," she shot back. "We appreciated it then, but now with my parents." "Now with your parents," I cut in, "you can't have the Mexican peasant embarrassing you at your fancy table." Her sugary tone vanished. "Don't be dramatic, Henry. This isn't about race. It's about class," she continued. "My father graduated summa cum laude from Washington State. My mother speaks 4 languages. They summer in the Hamptons. What exactly would you bring to the dinner conversation? Stories about laying tile?" Heat rose in my chest, but I kept my voice calm. "I built a business from nothing after your husband's grandfather passed. I've employed over 50 people. I've paid more in taxes than your father earned in his best year. She sniffed. Money isn't everything. Breeding matters. Education matters. And frankly, Maria Ramirez knew her place better than you do. The room went still. She'd stepped over a line I didn't even know existed until now. What did you just say about my wife? I'm just saying, she replied. Maria Ramirez knew how to blend in. She didn't make waves. She understood some spaces weren't meant for her. My hand tightened on the phone until my knuckles went white. Maria Ramirez had more class in her little finger than your entire family will ever have. Oh, please. She was a house cleaner who got lucky. At least she had the sense to keep quiet about it. Samantha. My voice dropped into something low and dangerous, a tone even I didn't recognize. Listen carefully. This conversation is over. We're done pretending we're family. You can't just. We're done, I repeated, and hung up. I set the phone down slowly, surprised at how steady my hands felt. The kitchen seemed different now, smaller, but lighter somehow, like the air had been scrubbed clean. I walked over to my desk in the corner and pulled out the manila folder I'd been avoiding for months. Bank statements. Mortgage documents. 5 years' worth of automatic transfers that had drained me dry while they played house like royalty. It was time to cut the line. The papers spread across the table like evidence at a crime scene. Every single one showed the same number, $2,800 pulled from my account on the 15th of each month. 5 years straight. I grabbed my calculator. First year, $33,000. Second year, another $36,000. By the third, I'd stopped buying new clothes. The fourth, I'd started shopping at discount grocers. This year. Peanut butter sandwiches for lunch, every day, just to make ends meet. The total glared back at me, $143,400. That didn't even count the down payment. Or the utility bills I'd covered when Samantha's shopping habit spun out of control. Or the new roof. The landscaping. The essential furniture for their lifestyle. Maria's life insurance. My retirement savings. The college fund for grandkids I'd apparently never meet. All of it, gone. Poured into a house where I wasn't even welcome for Christmas dinner. I picked up my phone and scrolled until I found my bank's number. The automated menu greeted me in English and Spanish. How thoughtful. Customer service, this is Jennifer. How can I help you today? I need to cancel an automatic transfer, I said, my voice steadier than it had been in years. Certainly, sir. I'll just need your account number and some verification information. I rattled off the numbers and listened to the faint click of her typing. Professional. Efficient. No hint of judgment in her voice about why a 62-year-old man was pulling the plug on what she must have guessed was his own son's mortgage. I see the transfer in question, Mr. Flores, she said. $2,800 monthly to Wells Fargo, account ending in 7423. How long have you been making this transfer? 5 years, I answered, and the words tasted like rust in my mouth. And you'd like to cancel it effective immediately? I looked around my kitchen, the old fridge humming like it was on its last leg, walls that could use a fresh coat of paint, windows that let the cold in like they'd been designed for it. All the upgrades I'd skip so I could pour my money into someone else's palace. Effective immediately, I said. Done. The transfer's been cancelled. Anything else I can help you with today? No, I replied, and I hadn't expected that little word to feel so damn good. That's everything. When I hung up, the quiet in my house felt different. Outside, Spokane was sinking into December darkness. Christmas lights glimmered in the windows of homes where people gathered without judgment, without rules, without having to hide who they were. For the first time in 5 years, my budget for next month would actually make sense. For the first time since Maria Ramirez died, I could think about fixing the porch light, buying real groceries, maybe even taking a trip somewhere warm. I stacked the bank statements and mortgage papers, 5 years' worth of proof of how far I'd bled myself for them. Then I carried it all to the fireplace, struck a match, and watched every page curl, blacken, and vanish. The heat licked at my face, warmer than anything I'd felt in years. My phone buzzed, probably Jason Miller trying to patch things up, or Samantha with some urgent request for money, maybe for something life or death like new throw pillows. I didn't check. Instead, I reached for the bottle of good whiskey, the one I'd been saving for a special occasion that never came. Tonight counted. I poured a generous glass, lifted it toward Maria's photo on the mantel, and toward the man I used to be, the man I was slowly building again. "Merry Christmas to me," I said, and meant it. The next morning was crisp, clear, and cold. Sunlight spilled through the kitchen windows as I worked on my second cup of coffee. For the first time in years, I wasn't mentally subtracting $2,800 from my account balance. Freedom tasted better than the Colombian roast I'd finally splurged on. At 10:47 a.m., my phone rang. Samantha's name lit up the screen like a warning sign. "Henry." Her voice came sharp with that fake patience she used when she was already annoyed. "I need you to pick up my parents from the Spokane airport. Their flight from Portland gets in at 2 o'clock. I set my mug down slowly, watching the steam curl away. "Samantha, did you forget about our conversation yesterday? Look, whatever that was about, we need to focus on practical matters now. My parents need a ride, and you're the only one with the free time during the day." I almost laughed. Less than 24 hours after telling me I wasn't good enough to eat Christmas dinner with her family, she wanted me to play chauffeur. "And you're asking me because?" "Because that's what family does, Henry. They help each other." Her voice turned sharp. "Besides, let's be honest, you're not my rival. You're too weak for that. So just get in your truck and pick them up." There it was. Wrapped up in one neat, ugly little package, an insult disguised as a command. "What airline?" I asked, keeping my tone calm. "Alaska Air, Flight 447. They'll be at baggage claim carousel 3. And Henry?" "Yes. They're expecting someone who can handle their luggage properly. Don't embarrass us." I could almost hear her fingernails clicking against that granite countertop, the one I'd paid for when she decided laminate wasn't good enough for her dinner parties. "Of course," I said. "I'll take care of everything." "Good. And wear something decent, maybe that blue shirt you wore to Jason Miller's graduation. They notice details like that." Click. "Call over." Not even a thank you. I looked at the clock, 10:52 a.m., plenty of time before Flight 447 landed. I poured another cup of coffee, stirred in extra sugar, and opened yesterday's crossword. 7 across, delayed gratification. 12 letters. I figured the answer would come to me by 2:15 p.m. I was sunk into my favorite armchair, Earl Grey in hand, the Sunday Spokane Review spread open on my lap. Yesterday's crossword was finished, delayed gratification turned out to be postponement. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. Samantha again. I let it ring. The afternoon sun slid across the living room floor, warm and steady. The silence around me felt different now, earned, deliberate. At 2:47, my phone lit up again. A text preview glared from the screen. "Dad, where are you?" "My parents are." I turned the phone face down and flipped to the sports section. The Seahawks had lost again. Some things never changed. By 3:30 in the afternoon, my phone had already rattled itself half to death, 6 calls in total. In that time, I'd polished off the entire newspaper, brewed a second pot of tea, and even tackled the chaos inside my kitchen junk drawer. Turns out, you can get a surprising amount done when you're not running around like a bellhop for people who think you were put on this earth to serve them. The 7th ring came at 3:45. This time it wasn't Samantha's name lighting up the screen but a number I knew all too well. My guess? Her parents had borrowed a stranger's phone at the airport. I let it ring until it gave up. Out my window, the neighbor was wrestling with a strand of Christmas lights on his porch while his kids tore through the yard, fueled by that strange, tireless energy December afternoons seemed to hand out for free. Just normal folks doing normal things. Nobody stranded. Nobody waiting for a chauffeur who was never going to show. By 4:15, the phone had gone from ringing in bursts to an all-out assault, Samantha, then the mystery number, then Samantha again. The buzzing was constant, angry, like a wasp trapped inside a jar. That's when I walked over, yanked my landline cord from the wall, and pressed the power button on my cell until it went black. Bliss. Absolute, unshakable quiet. Dinner was simple, a grilled cheese sandwich done just right, bread golden, cheese oozing, and a steaming mug of tomato soup. The kind of comfort food I'd avoided for months because every grocery dollar had been funneled toward keeping their high-end lifestyle afloat. I sat at the table, savoring the meal while the last of the daylight stretched long shadows across the backyard. Somewhere in the city, 3 people were probably huddled in an airport parking garage, grumbling over taxi fare and wondering how their reliable ride could just vanish on them. That thought made the soup taste even better. By 5 o'clock, dinner was done, the dishwasher loaded, and I was debating which movie to watch. It had been years since I'd had an evening entirely to myself, no emergencies, no guilt trips, no last-minute errands. I was just reaching for the remote when it started, pounding on my front door. Not knocking, pounding. The kind of hard, angry thuds that rattle the frame and carry the promise of trouble. I set my tea down and walked to the door at an unhurried pace, already certain of the faces I'd see. The pounding grew more frantic with every step. Through the peephole, I spotted 3 shapes crammed onto my tiny porch, looking for all the world like wolves about to tear into something. The moment I opened the door, David Carter, flushed face was inches from mine. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he barked, shoving his way into my living room like he owned the place. Linda Carter swept in right behind him, her perfect hair slightly mussed, her lips drawn tight with fury. "This is completely unacceptable behavior for a man your age, Henry," she hissed. "Absolutely barbaric." And then came Samantha, the tail end of this angry parade, her expensive coat creased and her makeup smudged. "You humiliated us. My parents had to take a $40 taxi because you decided to." "Get out of my house," I said, my voice cutting through their noise like a clean blade. They stopped mid-shout, startled by the steel in my tone. "Excuse me?" David's face deepened from red to a dangerous shade of purple. "You don't get to make demands here, buddy. Not after what you pulled today." "This is my house," I said evenly, holding my ground by the doorway, "and I want you out. Now." Linda Carter stepped forward, her voice dripping with practiced superiority. "Henry, you clearly don't understand the size of the mistake you've made. My husband has connections in this city, business, social, you can't treat people like us this way and expect." "This," I interrupted, locking eyes with her, "is a lesson. A lesson about arrogance, and about the way you treat people you think are beneath you." Samantha's mouth dropped open. "A lesson? Who do you think you are to teach anybody anything? You're nobody. I'm the man who finally stopped being your personal bank account and taxi service." I stepped aside and pulled the door wider. "Lesson's over. You can leave." David Carter jabbed a finger in my direction, stopping just short of touching me. "You have no idea who you're messing with, old man. I've been in this town longer than you've been breathing. I know people, important people, who can make your life very difficult." "Is that a threat, Mr. Jenkins?" "It's a promise," he said, lowering his voice like it was supposed to scare me. "You think leaving elderly folks at an airport is something you can just walk away from? You're about to learn otherwise." Linda Carter's smile was thin and sharp. "Indeed. Actions have consequences, Henry. And yours will be, very public. Samantha tugged at her father's arm. Daddy, let's just go. This pathetic old man isn't worth it. They marched out like a beaten army, but David Carter paused at the threshold. You'll regret this, he said, pointing a finger like he was sealing my fate. Count on it. The deadbolt clicked into place with a sound that felt better than applause. Through the window, I watched them climb into their rental car, still arguing as they disappeared into the winter night. The house seemed cleaner without them, like the air itself had lightened, but their words kept bouncing around in my head. Public consequences. Important people. Connections. I went back to the couch, picked up my tea, and took a sip. For the first time in this whole mess, I felt something that might have been worry, but it was buried under something far more satisfying, anticipation. 3 days later, I was halfway through my morning coffee and the local paper when I turned to page 3 and froze. My own face stared back at me under a headline that read, Spokane businessman abandons elderly couple at airport during holiday storm. My hands tightened on the mug. There I was, staring at my own face in grainy black and white, an old headshot from my company's website, probably taken 5 years ago back when I still wore a tie most days. Beneath it ran a story that made my stomach drop and my blood pressure spike all at once. The piece claimed that David Carter and Linda Carter, in town to visit their daughter for Christmas, had been left to fend for themselves at Spokane International Airport for over 4 hours on Sunday because family member Henry Ramirez, yours truly, failed to show up for a scheduled pickup. The article painted a pitiful picture, the poor couple, both in their late 50s, shivering in the frigid cold while a winter storm warning supposedly loomed over the region. That last part was almost funny, because in reality, the day had been a sunny 52 degrees without so much as a breeze. David, playing the role of the injured party to perfection, told the reporter, we couldn't believe someone would just abandon us like that. He added that they'd called repeatedly but that I never picked up, forcing them to shell out for an expensive taxi in dangerous weather. Then came the kicker, at our age, this kind of treatment isn't just inconsiderate, it's dangerous. And the paper bought it. Hook, line, and sinker. The further I read, the worse it got. Paragraph after paragraph quoted David's concern over my supposed erratic behavior and unstable mental state. No mention whatsoever of the Christmas dinner blow-up, Samantha's endless demands, or the years of financial handouts I'd poured into keeping their little fantasy world spinning. No context. No history. Just me cast as the heartless old man who abandoned fragile, innocent tourists in the middle of a blizzard that existed only in David's imagination. I set down my coffee cup, then picked the paper back up and read the whole thing again, slower this time. Then a third time, just to let it really settle in. The byline said Patricia Morrison, lifestyle editor. I didn't recognize her name, but I recognized the tactic instantly. David Carter had pulled in a favor, used his banking connections to get this thing planted exactly where it would hurt me the most. And I had to hand it to him, it was a smart move. For the first time since all this nonsense started, I felt a grudging respect for my so-called enemies. They weren't just spoiled trust fund brats throwing fits. They knew how to play the game. In a town like Spokane, reputation is currency. One nasty little article in the right spot could wipe out decades of work. They weren't just annoyed with me, they were declaring war. I folded the paper as carefully as if it were an important contract, set it aside, and felt my mind shift into that cool, methodical gear I'd honed back when I built my business from scratch. This wasn't about an airport pickup anymore. This wasn't about Christmas dinner. This wasn't even about the money. This was about winning. I pulled my laptop close and started typing names into search bars, David Carter, Linda Carter, Samantha Ramirez. Up came their Facebook posts, Instagram feeds, LinkedIn profiles, a buffet of public oversharing. David, retired First National Bank manager, member of the Spokane Country Club, treasurer for the Inland Northwest Business Leaders Association. A man with a polished resume and a reputation he wouldn't want dragged through the mud. Linda Carter, Instagram Queen. Charity luncheons, wine tastings, vacations in Coeur d'Alene with captions like #BlessedLife. Every image meticulously staged to radiate class and prosperity. I knew better, I'd helped fund half of it. Samantha, Facebook posts that could have been ripped straight from my credit card statements. Our beautiful home, my kitchen. Check-ins at expensive restaurants during months when I'd quietly paid their utility bills. Just last week she'd written, "So excited for Christmas dinner with family, can't wait to show off our hosting skills." Our hosting skills. Our home. Our success. But it was Jason Miller's LinkedIn page that gave me the final puzzle piece. There it was, a shiny new connection to Patricia Morrison, the very same lifestyle editor who'd just turned me into the villain of her holiday drama. I leaned back in my chair, looking at the web of information on my screen. They'd made 3 big mistakes. 1, they'd underestimated me. 2, they'd gone public, which meant I could go public too. 3, they'd documented every ounce of their hypocrisy online. Patricia's profile said she was 43, a WSU journalism grad, and had spent 15 years working for local papers. No banking ties. Which told me David Carter had reached out cold, probably through someone in his old network. 5 minutes with a local business directory confirmed it, 3 mutual contacts between David Carter and Patricia's editor. This wasn't random, it was deliberate. Amateur hour. I opened a fresh document, but I wasn't writing a letter to the editor. I was building something better, a timeline. 5 years' worth of receipts, bank statements, and canceled checks. The $47,000 I'd pulled from my home equity loan to cover their down payment. The $18,000 kitchen renovation Samantha had to have, because granite countertops were apparently a human right. And let's not forget, 60 mortgage payments at $2,800 a pop. $168,000. $250,000, if you counted everything over the last decade. All of it, spent on them, not me. My phone lit up with a text from some unfamiliar number. I didn't need to check to know it was probably Samantha trying a new angle. I let it buzz itself into silence and kept working. By nightfall, my desk was buried under proof, bank statements, receipts, screenshots from their social media showing off vacations, jewelry, and furniture I'd paid for. Even a printout of that newspaper hit piece, with my notes scrawled in red pen beside every lie. I slid it all into a manila folder thick enough to choke a horse. My calendar sat on the wall, December 24th circled in red. Not because it was Christmas. Because it was the perfect day for justice. According to Samantha's Facebook events, they were hosting Christmas dinner, 12 guests, all the friends and neighbors who read the Spokane Review and formed their opinions from it. People who thought they knew the story. People who deserved the truth. I closed my laptop, went to the kitchen, and picked up the good camera I'd once bought for job site photos. This time, it would document something far more satisfying. Christmas Eve morning rolled in gray and cold, a typical Spokane winter day, the kind that makes you grateful for a warm house and family. Too bad I wasn't welcome at either. I had better things to do. I spread the evidence across my table like a lawyer prepping for trial, bank statements, neatly highlighted, year by year. Receipts arranged chronologically, showing exactly how I'd propped up their lifestyle. Photos printed from their feeds, Samantha's new necklace, their trip to Coeur d'Alene, the gaudy Christmas decor covering the house I'd helped them keep. I made 12 identical sets, one for every guest at that dinner. The newspaper article went on top of each packet, my notes in glaring red, lie, scrawled next to David's blizzard fantasy, false, beside their claim about my so-called erratic behavior, missing context under every place they conveniently forgot 5 years of my financial support. When I dressed, I chose my best suit, the navy one I'd worn to Maria's funeral. Back then, it was to bury a person. Tonight, it was to bury a reputation, the pushover version of me that let his family walk over him. At 6:30 p.m. I loaded my briefcase with the packets and drove to Kendall Yards. Their place glowed like a postcard, cars crammed in the driveway, voices carrying out to the street. Through the window, I saw them around the table, Samantha playing hostess in the home my money bought. I parked across the street, checked my watch. 6:45, perfect. Late enough that dinner was in full swing, early enough that no one could duck out. The front door was unlocked. Of course it was. Samantha loved bragging about how safe their neighborhood was. I stepped inside, letting the warmth and sound of laughter wash over me. "That's not how we do things in our family," Linda Carter was saying, and they all laughed. "Our family." Right. I walked into the dining room with my briefcase. 12 heads turned, expressions shifting from confusion to outright horror. Samantha froze mid-sip. Jason Miller went pale. David Carter and Linda Carter looked like they'd seen a ghost. "Good evening, everyone," I said, calm as Sunday morning. "I hope you don't mind me joining your Christmas celebration." Samantha was first to recover. "Henry, this is completely inappropriate. You need to leave. Now." "Actually," I said, flipping open the briefcase, "I think your guests deserve to know who really paid for this dinner, this house, and this lifestyle you've been parading around." A woman I didn't recognize, probably one of Linda Carter's charity friends, leaned forward, curious. "What is he talking about, Samantha?" "He's having some kind of episode," Samantha shot back. "Jason Miller, call someone." Too late. I was already moving around the table, dropping a packet in front of each guest. 5 years of financial support, I said, like I was giving a business presentation. $168,000 in mortgage payments alone, plus the down payment, renovations, furniture, appliances, everything you see in this room. The only sound was the rustle of paper as they flipped through. Faces tightened, eyes flicked between me and the numbers in black and white. "This is," one man began, then stopped. "Outrageous," finished the woman across from him. "Samantha, why didn't you tell us any of this?" "It's more complicated than it looks," Samantha stammered. "Henry volunteered to help. We never asked." "Actually," I cut in, pulling out copies of the newspaper article, "let's talk about what you did ask for, and what you told the media." I passed them around, watching recognition flash across their faces as they saw my photo from the hit piece 3 days earlier. "Now," I said, my voice even but sharp enough to cut through the room, "let's talk about the real manipulators in this family." David's skin had gone from crimson to chalk white. Linda Carter sat frozen, her wine glass hovering midair. "Mr. Jenkins here," I continued, tapping the article, "used his banking connections to plant this story. Notice how I'm painted as unstable and dangerous, abandoning poor elderly people, in a blizzard that never happened." A gray-haired man in an expensive sweater looked up from the article, eyebrows raised. "David, what's going on here?" I asked before he could even open his mouth. "It's 52 degrees out and sunny, so don't try to tell me they're stranded travelers. That's Samantha's parents, and they're here for the Christmas dinner I got disinvited from because apparently, I wasn't good enough for their company." Linda Carter finally found the courage to speak. "That's not, we never said." "You never said what, Linda Carter?" I pulled out my phone, thumb hovering over the screenshots I'd taken of Samantha's social media posts. "That I'm too low class for your parents? That my Mexican cooking and plain, working man conversation would embarrass you in front of all your educated friends?" One of Linda Carter's charity gala friends shifted in her chair like her dress suddenly got too tight. "Linda Carter, you didn't." "He's twisting this," David Carter blurted, but the lack of conviction in his voice was obvious. "This man's got serious mental issues. Stress of aging, financial troubles." "Financial troubles?" I almost laughed right there at the table. "Mr. Jenkins, I've been handing over close to $3,000 a month to support your daughter and son-in-law, for 5 years. The only financial problems in this room are the ones you're about to have." I turned to address everyone present. These folks have taken over $200,000 from me, all while calling me names behind my back. They've turned my own son against me, kept me out of family holidays, and when I finally grew a backbone and said no, they tried to smear my name in the newspaper. Jason Miller spoke for the first time, voice barely above a whisper. Dad. I didn't know about the newspaper. Your wife knew, I said, keeping my voice steady. Her parents were the ones pulling the strings. They painted me as the villain because I wouldn't be their personal ATM or chauffeur. I could feel the mood at the table shifting, like tectonic plates grinding underfoot. You could see it on their faces, the slow, dawning realization that their gracious hosts were nothing like the picture they'd been sold. This is disgraceful, said an older woman in pearls, her eyes fixed on the bank statements in her hands. David, how could you let your daughter take this man's generosity and then attack him in public when he stopped paying? David's polished image was starting to crack. You don't understand the whole situation. I understand it just fine, the woman cut in. This man kept your family afloat for years, and you treated him like the hired help. Then, when he said no, you went after his name. Linda Carter's voice came out tight. He left us at the airport. After you told me my presence at Christmas dinner would be inappropriate for your parents, I replied calmly. After I paid your bills for 5 years while you looked down your nose at me because of my ethnicity and education. The silence that followed was heavy. 12 pairs of eyes staring at David Carter and Linda Carter, some angry, some embarrassed that they'd ever been associated with them. Samantha tried one last time to steer the story. Everyone, please. This is a family issue that's gotten out of hand. No, I said, voice firm. It stopped being a family issue the moment you made it public, when you ran to the newspaper to assassinate my character. You decided my reputation was expendable, all for your pride. I looked at faces I didn't know but who now knew exactly who I was. I wanted you all to hear the truth before you read about Henry Ramirez in the paper again, because you will read about me again, but next time, it'll be the real story. I closed my briefcase, adjusted my tie. Enjoy the rest of your dinner. It's the last one I'm footing the bill for. As I walked to the door, the eruption started behind me, raised voices, questions fired like bullets, the sound of a carefully built social mask tearing apart at the seams. It was, hands down, the sweetest Christmas music I'd ever heard. The letter showed up on a Tuesday morning in March, certified mail, with that heavy, legal kind of weight in every word. I signed for it at the door, breathing in the smell of spring, new grass, open windows, the exact opposite of the bitter, desperate winter air from that December night. Notice of default, the envelope said. Final demand for payment. 3 months' worth of unpaid mortgage bills had finally caught up with Jason Miller and Samantha, slamming into them like a wave they never saw coming, $8,400 overdue, 2 weeks to pay or lose the house I'd once helped them buy. I set it down, took a sip of coffee, and read it like you'd read about some far-off storm, interesting, but not your problem anymore. The calls had been coming for weeks. Samantha's number got blocked after her first hysterical voicemail. David Carter and Linda Carter's once golden status in Spokane had melted away like morning fog after that Christmas dinner scene. Even Jason Miller had called, over and over. I'd been ignoring him, partly out of anger, partly out of curiosity about how long it would take before he swallowed his pride. Apparently, the answer was 97 days. He showed up that Thursday night, no longer the smug man who'd cut me out of his holiday plans, but someone who'd aged 10 years in 3 months. Dark circles under his eyes, suit rumpled, reeking of desperation. Dad, he said when I opened the door, we need to talk. I stepped aside. He walked in, glancing around like he'd never seen my place before. The new furniture I'd bought with my first mortgage-free paycheck, the fresh paint on the walls that hadn't been touched in 8 years because every spare dollar used to go to him, the repairs I'd finally managed now that I wasn't bankrolling somebody else's dream. Jason Miller stepped inside, glanced around, and muttered, "Nice place." That's what happens when you spend your money on yourself instead of people who don't appreciate it, I said, settling into my recliner. Coffee? He shook his head, perching on the edge of the couch like he didn't plan on staying long. Dad. I'm sorry. For everything. Christmas dinner. The article. The way Samantha, he stopped, corrected himself, the way we treated you. Go on. I didn't know David Carter planted that story. I swear I didn't. When I found out, he ran a hand through his hair, shaking his head. Jesus, Dad, the things they said about you behind your back. About our family. About Mom. My jaw tightened at Maria's name. What exactly did they say about your mother? That she knew her place better than you knew yours. That she understood boundaries. He couldn't look at me. I should have defended you. I should have stood up to them years ago. Yes, I said simply. You should have. We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, someone's mower droned. Just another Thursday evening, except most sons don't ban their fathers from Christmas dinner. The house is in foreclosure, Jason Miller said finally. I know. We can't make the payments without, he stopped, realizing how that sounded. Without my help, I finished. Without the money I sent every month while you let your wife's family treat me like garbage. He nodded miserably. Samantha added it up after Christmas, the mortgage, the down payment, everything. Over $200,000. $237,468, I corrected. I know the exact number because I finally did something I should have done years ago, added it up. His face fell. Dad, I'm so sorry. I don't know how to fix this. You can't. The money's gone. More importantly, the years are gone. 5 years I could have been building a relationship with you instead of funding someone else's fantasy. I know, but maybe we could start over. Are you asking me to start paying your mortgage again? The hope drained out of his eyes. We're going to lose everything. You'll figure it out, I said, not unkindly. Just like I figured out how to spend Christmas alone while you celebrated with people who thought I was beneath them. He swallowed hard. I lost you, didn't I? No, I said quietly. You didn't lose me. You gave me away. Can you forgive me? I forgave you months ago. But forgiveness doesn't mean going back to the way things were. It doesn't mean pretending this never happened, or that I'll bankroll your life again. Then what does it mean? I walked to the mantel, where Maria's photo sat beside a new picture, me with Elena and her family at Easter dinner. The first holiday I'd spent with people who genuinely wanted me there. It means if you want a relationship with me, you'll have to build it from scratch. It means respect. It means doing what's right, not what's convenient. And it means that the next time someone tries to exclude me from a family gathering, you'll remember who actually acts like family. He nodded slowly. The house? Not my problem. You're a grown man. Get a job that pays your bills. Sell it and buy something you can afford. Stop expecting other people to subsidize your choices. You're right about all of it, he admitted. I know. At the door, he turned back. For what it's worth, seeing you stand up for yourself at Christmas, I was proud. Angry and embarrassed, but proud. Good, I said. Maybe there's hope for you yet. After he left, I poured myself a glass of good whiskey and stepped onto the porch. Spring was coming to Spokane. The trees were budding. The air was warm with promise. In 4 months, I'd be 63. Maria Ramirez had been gone 8 years. I'd wasted 5 of them being a doormat for people who didn't deserve it. I wasn't wasting any more. A text buzzed from Elena, dinner Sunday. The kids want to show you their school projects. I smiled and typed back, wouldn't miss it. Real family, I'd learned, was made of people who actually wanted you there. Everything else was just expensive theater, and I was done buying tickets to a show where I wasn't welcome on stage. The whiskey tasted like freedom. And the future looked exactly as bright as I decided to make it. Thank you for watching.